I snuck into the cantina, patting at my neck to ensure my slave collar was hidden under the mechanic's overalls I had swiped from a nearby repair bay. If I could just escape detection for 3 standard time units, Exketh would have to fly on to make his deliveries, and maybe, just maybe, I would finally have a chance at freedom. The cantina was packed with a multitude of alien life forms, a hubbub of voices, clicking and yodeling, underscored by the flat tones of universal translator units whispering in everyone's various hearing sensors. At the back, though, in the corner I noticed a table with only one occupant, a biped, probably primate origins like myself, but where I was covered in a sable fur like all of my kind. This being had hardly any hair, its pink flesh peeking out exposed from the extremities of its garment. A small amount of hair covered the top of its head, and a tuft sprouted, elaborately curled, from under what I thought to be its scenting, breathing proboscis, maybe as some sort of filter. At the next table, another dozen or so of its species sat, chatting amongst themselves, but this one sat alone, an expanse of compressed plant fiber spread in front of it, with squiggles of a written language, and rudimentary pictures printed on it. Perhaps if I could strike up a conversation, Exketh and his crew wouldn't find me, being as they would be looking for a solitary, hiding, escaped slave. I scampered over to the table, smoothing down my pelt as I did so, and pointed at one of the empty chairs at the table. "Do you mind?" The being looked up from its reading material, contorted its facial features into what I surmised to be a friendly expression, and its voice lowed at me in a speaking voice reminiscent of a 6-legged Volta, a beast of burden back on my home world. Negative, self-assistance, young male diminutive. My translator whispered on its behalf. I slipped into the chair. "Actually, I'm female, Talasia by name, Bagreth by species," I said in return. Exclamation, abject apology. Name is Commander Richard Fortescue Smythe, belonging of HMS Endeavor, human of species. Sincere greetings, offense not meant. None taken. I must admit, though, I haven't heard of humans before. We are new, just admitted to Galactic Federation after FTL discovery. Many new species to us, much learning doing. He extended an appendage in what I believed to be a gesture of greeting. Interesting? I glanced around the cantina, still no sign of Exketh. And what are you reading? Information paper, traditional method of news from home planet. My planetary grouping is losing the cricket sporting competition. I speak. Are you capable of delivery of a googly citizenship available for decent wrist spinner? I'm afraid I have no idea what wrist spinner is, Commanderer, but I'd be willing to try if you require one. A shadow loomed over the table. I looked up in terror, fearing Exketh had found me, but it was another human proffering a beverage to my companion. "Cup of tea, sir. Exclamation beneficial exhibition, aged legume. Remain with crew, request chief to be ensuring best behavior." "Aye, aye, sir." My interlocutor produced a metal canister from his side, covered his proboscis and mouth with the nozzle, and took a deep sniff. I narrowed my eyes at this. "Apologies, is pure oxygen. Galactic standard air is a tad. Unknown quantifier, best guess small, low for human. Need excess on occasion." "Oh, fascinating. My species is the same, and galactic standard gravity setting is about 10% low for us, too." Pleased agreement, affirmative. Gravity much too low, much annoyance. Require attempt? With this, he proffered the oxygen bottle to me. I took it and moved the nozzle near to my nose. As I breathed deep, I closed my eyes as I felt the pure oxygen revitalize me. It seemed these humans and I had some things in common. As I opened my eyes, though, terror swept through me. Behind, Commander, stood the black, chitinous bulk of Exketh, an evil cadence to the chattering of his mandibles matched by the 20 crew members arrayed behind him. "There you are, you treacherous slave. I'll teach you to run. You'll scream in pain for the whole run to Epsilon 6. One long pincer reached out and grabbed my arm, lifting from my seat. "You will learn your place, slave, or die in the attempt." I gibbered in fear and scrabbled at my slave collar as I saw Exketh raise the electroshock control in one of its other manipulators. But everything stopped as one of Commander's grasping appendages wrapped around Exketh's manipulator, and I could have sworn I heard its chitinous carapace cracking under the force of the grip. Apologies, aged legume, permission impossible. This Thalassia, not slave, is free being, human breath make. Shut mouth primate. No knowledge of what you speak. Thalassia is my legal slave under galactic law. And why the expletive deleted? Are you calling me a legume? Exclamation, apology. Commander retrieved its translator module from its hearing sensor with its free appendage, flicked a setting with 1 digit, and replaced it. Terribly sorry about that, old bean. One always forgets to enable the dialect settings. My fault entirely. Now, as I was saying, Thalassia is no slave. Idiot primate. Entire Bagrath race is slave, legal by galactic law under rights of conquest. Human have no right of contestation. On the contrary, my dear alien insect chap, I do. You see, we made slavery illegal 1,000 years ago on Earth, and enshrined in law a simple truth. The air of England is too pure for a slave to breathe. The moment any slave takes 1 breath of English air, they are freed. Commander gestured to the air bottle that dangled from my hand still, just as I dangled from Exketh's pincer. And she has breathed my air. She is free and under my protection. Then you die with her, human. Exketh dropped me to the deck and reared back to strike down at Commander, only to let out a clicking scream as his carapace splintered and broke under Commander's grip. Jolly good, as you wish, old bean, said Commander, and then he, casually it seemed, drove his fist straight through Exketh's thorax. Chief and the other humans at the next table surged forward, and the rest of Exketh's crew were reduced to a purple paste before I managed to get my breath back under control. As I looked up at Commander, he plucked a square of fabric from a pocket on his chest and began to wipe Exketh's purple blood from his skin. He then picked up his information paper, folded it, and tucked it under one appendage. Chief, he rapped out in a commanding voice unlike any I had heard from him before. Sir, Signal Earth HMS Endeavour is changing her flag. We are now under the West Africa Squadron. Oh, and request they send a gunboat or 2. I'm about to start a war under the Lord Mansfield Edict. Aye, aye, sir. Commander looked down at me and extended an appendage to help me up. Now, my dear, how about you come with us and try that googly, eh? We do still need a good spinner for the cricket team. I took his hand. Commander Richard Fortescue Smythe, Dickie to friends and family, squinted through the viewfinder from his hiding spot behind some artfully stacked barrels, taking in the details of the freighter docking in the bay just across the way. Are we sure of the identification, Chief? He sub-vocalized into his comms. Aye, sir. Zerillian freighter, designation XF 2198, commanding officer Exketh, an estimated 27 Zerillian crew, and another 50 in slave races, including at least 3 Bagrath. Manifest claims medical supplies en route to Epsilon 6. Pounds gets you pennies. It's actually narcotics. Putting in for a splash and dash refuel. Goodo, let's run the numbers one last time. The refueling crew is paid off. Aye, sir, they'll cock up the fueling and cause the spillage. Cleaning bots have been disabled to cause a delay. This Exketh will have to order one of his Death Worlder slaves to do the cleanup of toxic fuel if he wants to stay on schedule. The Bagrath are the natural choice for that. Then the customs inspector will go in. Etiquette dictates that the bribing will be done inside the ship to at least give the appearance of following the law. That should give you the opportunity to approach the Bagrath and administer the sniff. Jolly good, jolly good. And our people? 3 sniper teams on overwatch, 6 individuals on perimeter lookout, assault team of an even dozen with me in case it all goes tits up, sir. Relax a little. The intel is good, and it's all as in the plan. Well, damn it, Chief. You've bollocksed it right up now, sunshine. Tell me, how long do plans remain useful? A long, suffering sigh came across the comms. About half a femtosecond after contact with the enemy, sir. And you've just bloody guaranteed something will go snafu. Thanks awfully, old boy. Everyone say thank you to Chief Jenkins. Dickie smiled as the 24 crew members hooked into the local secure comms network groaned and thanked the Chief Petty Officer for his slip-up. It did the crew good to have a reason to grouse about their seniors, especially on these covert ops with all their attendant hurry up and wait urgency. Minutes ticked by as the Zerillian freighter carefully negotiated the last few yards of the docking procedure. nosing into the bay with the jerky and abrupt movements that were characteristic of an AI-controlled docking. A bored-looking refueling team assembled, made up of the diminutive reptilian Kareth that specialized in menial tasks across the Federation, given their species' ability to phlegmatically lean on a mop and stare into space in just about any conditions. They looked about as motivated as a child that had been told to tidy its room. Dickie approved. Whilst he wouldn't be too impressed with having them tend to any vessel under his command, no being would be surprised by this motley crew cocking up a simple refueling. In defiance of the chief's tempting of the fates, Dickie watched as the first few steps of the plan unfolded like clockwork. The Kareth managed to direct a spurt of fuel across the extended walkway when trying to plug in the rig. A Xyrillian erupted from the airlock, gesticulating wildly with its black chitinous manipulators as the crew of tiny reptiles immediately downed tools and settled on their haunches a respectable distance away from the spilt fuel, toxic as it was to the vast majority of life in the galaxy. The crew chief waved a datapad at the angry Xyrillian, seemingly unimpressed by the chattering mandibles of the towering insectoid, and pointed at a personal time unit, obviously explaining the wait for a functioning cleaning bot. The Xyrillian stalked back onto its ship, reappearing with a bedraggled Bagreth hauling a cart of cleaning supplies. Bipedal, with dark fur and a feline cast to its features, the Bagreth started cleaning up the spilt fuel. A Bagreth, just like a human, could have bathed in the energy-rich fuel with little ill effect, a byproduct of their shared Death World heritage. The customs inspector turned up right on time to collect its bribe, and Dickie extracted himself from his hidey hole, ready to saunter over to the Bagreth as soon as the Xyrillian walked the inspector on board. As soon as the insectoid's bulk disappeared into the airlock, Dickie set off, whistling idly as he waved his rolled-up newspaper and rounded the corner to find an empty walkway, just as one of the snipers announced, "Target moving." "Shit, where's the Bagreth?" "Sir, Sniper 3, I've got it, it's running. It's under the walkway, heading towards exit 2. I'm moving to maintain visual." Dickie wheeled about and strode off towards exit 2. "Damn it, Chief, I blame you for this." "Roger that, sir. Assault team moving to cover." "Sir, Perimeter 2, I have a visual on the target. It just ducked into a repair bay by exit 2. I think it's grabbing clothing." "Okay, keep a close eye, Perimeter 2. Looks like we've got an escape attempt on our hands. Top hole, I like it. Let's see if we can roll with it. Chief, what's through exit 2? "Cantina, sir, but the station has full audio-visual surveillance in there." "Perfect. Our little show can go on ahead with full audio for the Federation's benefit. Chief, you and the assault team get inside the cantina with me, Perimeter. Reset around the cantina in case the Bagreth goes another way. Snipers, move as you see fit for coverage. I'm going dark on comms in there for when this shows up on some bureaucrat's desk. Don't want some eagle-eyed camera picking up my earpiece when the authorities review this. Everyone clear?" "Aye, aye, sir." As Dickie went through the cantina door, taking care not to pay attention to the repair bay the target was currently hiding in, he saw Chief Jenkins and the dozen members of the assault team double timing to catch up to him. Stepping inside, he swept the room at a glance and spotted a pair of tables that fitted his needs. Walking up to the first, he looked at the assortment of aliens seated there and tossed a credit chip into the middle of the table. "Awfully sorry, chaps, I need the table, meeting an old chum, you know how it is. There's 50 bearer credits on there for your trouble, how do you say?" One of the aliens reached out with a quick hand and grabbed the chip. Negotiable pay-to-bearer credits were useful beyond just their face value, being an anonymous way of transferring funds. Remarkable. We have place to be. Immediate. Coincidence. Parting sentiments. "Toodaloo, fellas." Dickie nodded as the alien group left, kicked the stools into a subconsciously welcoming angle, and positioned himself so as to be visible from the door, hoping to attract the Bagreth's attention as it slipped inside. He smiled to himself as the assault team arrived at the next table. Chief Jenkins, ever the diplomat, took a slightly less expensive route to securing the table, slamming one hand onto the tabletop, pinning the largest occupant with a piercing stare before glancing around at the rest of the grouping and hissing, "You lot, fucking do one, now," before jerking his thumb towards the door. They fled, like herbivores from a predator, appropriately. The team settled in, ordering drinks through the table interface, as Dickie ignored them, spreading open his paper, studying the latest woes of the test team touring India back on Earth as he watched the door out of the corner of his eye. He saw the Bagreth slink in, sticking to the shadows, now clad in a greasy set of ill-fitting coveralls. Saw it look around the cantina, checking all the corners, and he held his breath, hoping that this might just go his way. Success! The Bagreth darted towards him, arriving at his table in a blink, where it pointed at one of the empty stools. Objection? Its voice purred out in a pleasant rumble, contrasting to the flat tones of the translator. Of course not. Help yourself, young fellow. Dickie noticed the Bagreth positioned itself with himself between it and the door. Good instincts. He was more and more impressed by the escapee. Correction, female gender. Name is Talasia. Species is Bagreth. Oh, I'm terribly sorry. My name is Commander Richard Fortescue Smythe of HMS Endeavour. Humanity is my species. Pleasure to meet you. I meant no offense. Not taken. Confession. Human. Not known. We're new here. Not long since joined the Galactic Federation after we discovered FTL. We don't know many species either yet. We have a lot to learn. Chief Jenkins caught Dickie's eye, rubbed his own ear with the comm's earpiece in it, and dropped a sign indicating danger coming. The Zerillians must have noticed the absence of their Bagreth slave. Dickie was on the clock. Interest. What reading subject? My newspaper? Old school news from back home. I'm afraid the old homeland is losing the cricket again. I say, I don't suppose you can bowl a googly, can you? We'll give you a passport if you're a quality wrist spinner. Talasia looked perplexed. Fear, wrist spinner. Not known. Commander, attempt possible if needed. Chief Jenkins approached the table, a cup in his hands. Dickie saw a flash of fear on Talasia's face as Jenkins reached out, but it passed quickly as her eyes flicked up. Cup of tea, sir. Jenkins put the cup on the table, taking care to spin the cup around in front of Dickie so that the handle was in the 6 o'clock position. Danger was 30 seconds out. Dickie was running out of time. Good show, old bean. Stay with the team, please, Chief. Keep 'em on their toes. Aye, aye, sir. Dickie plucked the small, pre-prepared oxygen tube from his belt, crammed the mouthpiece to his own face, and took a deep breath as he looked back to Talasia. Oh, I'm sorry, just some pure oxygen. Galactic standard air is a tad low for humans. We need a top-up now and then. Dickie could see Talasia's eyes light up with interest at this. Navy intel had told them that Bagreth had similar oxygen requirements to human ideals, and galactic standard was a tad thin. Interest? Own species same? Galactic standard gravity 10% low also. Oh, I quite agree. Yes, the gravity is far too low, very annoying. Fancy a try? Dickie extended the oxygen bottle, crossing his fingers as he came to the entire point of the mission. Talasia took the bottle and sniffed at the nozzle with her eyes closed, as Dickie saw Chief Jenkins repeatedly flash, "Danger incoming," from the next table. A quiet spread across the cantina as a smile spread across Dickie's face. Mission accomplished. Now for the simple bit. He spotted a dark shape behind him in his peripheral vision. The Zerillians were here, but they were seconds too late. You present falsehood, insult, education on locomotion. Exclaim in pain you will to Epsilon 6. The Zerillian reached past Dickie with these words, grabbing Talasia with one pincer. Learn location or death. Dickie judged that to be just about enough for the cameras. Besides, a surge of protectiveness for Talasia swept through him. As the Zerillian raised one of its other manipulators, a small device in claw, Dickie reached out and grabbed it, giving a gentle squeeze as he held the spindly insectoid still. Sorry, old bean, but I can't let you do that. Talasia here is not a slave anymore. Human air automatically makes... The Zerillian snapped all its focus to Dickie. Shut mouth, primate. No knowledge of what you speak. Talasia is my legal slave under galactic law. And why the... expletive deleted. Are you calling me a legume? Dickie tightened his grip a little. Sorry. He pulled the translator from his ear, flicked the setting button with one finger and tucked it back in. Terribly sorry about that, old bean. One always forgets to enable the dialect settings. My fault entirely. Now, as I was saying, Talasia is no slave. Idiot primate. Entire Bagreth race is slave. Legal by galactic law under rights of conquest. Human have no right of contestation. On the contrary, my dear alien insect chap, I do. You see, we made slavery illegal 1,000 years ago on Earth, and enshrined in law a simple truth. The air of England is too pure for a slave to breathe. The moment any slave takes one breath of English air, they are freed, and she has breathed my air. She is free and under my protection. Then you die with her, human. Talasia fell to the deck as the Xyrillian reared back. Dickie smiled and closed his fist around the Xyrillian's manipulator, feeling the chitin give way in his hand. Jolly good, as you wish, old bean. And drove his other fist straight into the thorax so helpfully displayed in front of him. Chief Jenkins and the assault team vaulted over their table, landing in amongst the rest of the Xyrillian crew members. They went to work, dispatching the insects before any being could react to the controlled speed and aggression of a Marine who has had their drinking interrupted. Dickie extricated his hand from the Xyrillian's thorax and let it slump to the deck as he pulled out his pocket square and wiped off his hand. He picked up the paper, folded it, and tucked it under one arm. Chief, sir, signal Earth, HMS Endeavour is changing her flag. We are now under the West Africa Squadron. Oh, and request they send a gunboat or two. I'm about to start a war under the Lord Mansfield Edict. Aye, aye, sir. Dickie looked down at Talasia, where she was crouched on the deck, breathing heavily. Now, my dear, how about you come with us and try that googly, eh? We do still need a good spinner for the cricket team. She reached up and grabbed his hand. Dickie helped her stand. Time to get her back to the Endeavour before he set off a political bombshell that was going to rock the Galactic Federation to its core. Dickie was looking forward to this. Dickie strode towards the door, Talasia's hand still in his focus on returning to the ship. He was going to have to do some fast talking and creative report writing to get this snafu past the Admiralty. Still, technically, he had accomplished the mission, and Lieutenant Fotherington had tipped him the word that the Third Sea Lord was open to, creative methods as long as the job got done. Then again, the word discreet had been highlighted in his orders, and underlined. Twice. Mayhap he shouldn't have brought the full assault crew. No use crying over spilt milk, though. Best to forge on, and in fact, when blood had been spilt, best to be the only one left alive at the inquest. Explanations were easier that way, he'd found. On that note, Talasia, my dear, we were under the impression there were about 27 Xyrillians and 50 slaves on that freighter. Is that about correct? Talasia took a deep breath, still clutching onto his hand, and gave herself a little shake as if trying to process everything that was happening to her. Yes, I think so. Lovely, and tell me, how would the slaves react to someone popping into the ship and giving the last few Xyrillians a touch of the old what for? Talasia paused, her head cocked to one side as she listened to her translator struggle. Oh, I think they would be fine with it, Commander. Jolly good, thanks awfully. Chief? Aye, aye, sir. A quick trip back to the freighter may just be in order, methinks. Can't be many of them left by this point, eh? Aye, sir. About half a dozen by my count. Permission to brief the chaps and chapesses? Indeed, Jenkins, carry on. Chief Jenkins spun on one heel and stomped back through the pile of Xyrillian corpses, somehow managing to thud his shoes into the deck, even in the light galactic standard gravity of the station. Okay, boys and girls, you heard the skipper. 6 left and our cover is blown. Prep your weapons, we're going loud and taking the freighter. 10 ticks, then off we fuck, savvy? Aye, Chief, chorused the Marines of the assault team as they started pulling out an array of weaponry that bewildered Talasia with its variety. Minutes later, Dickie once again crouched behind his familiar assortment of barrels. Talasia tucked in beside him, looking at the walkway leading to the Xyrillian freighter's airlock. It appeared the cleaning bot had been by, and the bribed refueling team had finished their work and left. When you're ready, Chief, Dickie whispered. Chief Jenkins and Corporal Coates of the assault team, a delicate-looking female who looked like butter wouldn't melt in her mouth, and Talasia was fairly sure had headbutted at least 2 Xyrillians to death just 10 minutes prior, staggered up the walkway, arms wrapped around each other, bottles of alcohol brandished aloft, singing what was apparently a time-honored drinking song regarding the number of drinking vessels remaining on a load-bearing structure. As the two came up to the freighter's airlock, they stumbled into it, their dense human musculature impacting the metal hard enough to alert anyone on the other side to their presence. Talasia was more and more confused. When had the humans gotten inebriated? What on earth did they think they were doing? This was not how assaults worked. This was the time for stealth, for the pounce. They had done so in the cantina, just like a Bagreth would have done, leaping into action at the perfect moment while the enemy was distracted. But now? This was folly. She had to speak. Commander, they are going to be seen. The freighter has cameras. Maybe you humans don't know about them. They are remote viewing devices that can— Shh, just watch, hissed Dickie. The freighter door was opening. Those poor inebriated humans were going to die. No element of surprise, no room to pounce, no advantage of terrain. Talasia could barely force herself to watch. Sure enough, the first thing out the door was a Zerillian assault rifle, pointed directly at Chief's head. Chief backed up a few steps, saying something to the Zerillian crew member as Corporal Coates sank to her knees, apparently overcome by fear and alcohol. Talasia twitched, ready to run to assist the chief, when she felt Dickie's hand on hers. "Hold on, my dear," he whispered. "One more step." Talasia looked back just as Corporal Coates moved, one hand ripping apart the Zerillian's subgenital plate on the abdomen, the other thrusting the bottle of alcohol, now sporting a flaming rag from the spout, straight into the sensitive ovipositor valve. The Zerillian shrieked as flames licked across the tip of its ruined abdomen and ran back into the freighter. The chief and Coates produced weapons from underneath their clothing and, seemingly sober once more, followed the screaming, burning insectoid inside as the rest of the assault team powered down the walkway at full speed. "Wonderful. Looks like they have their distractions sorted. I think we should go grab our ride," said Dickie, as he extricated them from behind the barrels and walked off towards another walkway further down the concourse. Talasia skipped to keep up with him, reaching for his hand once more without really considering why she did so. "Commander, what was that? That is not how attacks happen. Why send drunk people where they could be seen? Why not strike from concealment like a true predator, or from a position of strength?" Dickie was perplexed. "Do the Bagreth not utilize deception in warfare?" he asked. "No, Commander. Concealment, yes, and often or advantageous terrain, but how would lying help in fighting? No species does such a thing." "Oh, I see. Well, won't this be a fun little war?" Dickie laughed quickly and quietly. "Talasia, my dear?" "Yes? Call me Dickie. All my friends do. And here we are." He extended a hand towards a small vessel, less than half the size of the freighter, snugged up against another walkway. "This is your Endeavor?" Talasia asked. "Oh no, just my personal gig. The Endeavor is a little larger than this." With that, Dickie keyed in a short code and led Talasia aboard. She marveled at the interior. Brightly lit, the air was rich and the gravity high, the highest she had come across on board a space-going vessel. She bounced on her footpads, luxuriating in the feeling of it. She followed Dickie as he strode off to the prow of the vessel, not wanting to stray far from the human. They entered an open room with multiple workstations, yet more humans sat at them. Dickie draped himself across a centrally positioned chair and indicated a nearby one to Talasia as he barked out, "Report!" One of the other humans turned and rattled off a response. "Sniper and perimeter teams aboard, sir. Chief reports the freighter is ours. All Zerillians KIA, slave population all okay. One injury in the team, non-serious. Treatment can wait until we're back at Endeavor." "Very well. I guess we should toddle off home then. As you please, coxswain." "Aye, aye, sir." Talasia felt more than heard a hum through the vessel as it backed away from the walkway, catching sight of the space station structure whirling quickly on a view screen as they pivoted and thrust away into the darkness. "Coming up to half impulse thrust, sir. Chief reports the freighter is maxed out at this burn rate." "Very good. Hold at this and let them keep station. Keep them under our port side and keep scanners at full range." Talasia drifted off into an exhausted sleep as the humans chattered back and forth, unable to believe how her life had changed in the last hour. Some period of time later, she startled awake at the touch of Dickie's hand to her shoulder. Talasia, wake up, old fruit, there's something you should see. Dickie directed her attention to a nearby screen. That's my endeavor. A tubular ship unlike any other design Talasia had come across was displayed there. She could discern no up or down, no top, bottom, or sides to its construction. She looked closer. It appeared to be an open tube, open through the middle apart from a complex network of interlocking circles that filled the inner tube like a spirograph gone wild. She looked closer at the display and the extra information the computer was overlaying onto it. What units are these measurements in? Oh, sorry about that. Dickie clicked on a couple of options and the measurements changed to galactic standards. That says this ship is around 600 cellings long. That's insane. 600 ceilings, let's see, multiply by 1.6. Yep, that's about a kilometer. Close enough. Dickie burbled happily, obviously proud of his vessel. How do you build ships that big? The power requirements for gravity generation alone on a vessel that size must be immense. No other species builds that large for anything other than gravity-free cargo transports. Ah, well, that's the thing. The gravity doesn't actually need to be generated. It's kind of a byproduct. A byproduct? Of what? Our FTL drives. Endeavor has 4 of them. She's really quite sprightly for a frigate. How in the 7 dodecahedrons of a hell dimension are you achieving FTL? I'm no scientist, but I've been dragged around space my entire enslaved life, and I've had to scrub the stains off engines of every description, but I've never seen one that generates gravity as a byproduct. Well, it's really quite simple. One of the other crew members spoke up from the next screen over. All due respect, Skipper, but no, it isn't. True, simple is the wrong word. Let's see, it's hideously complex, quite ununderstandable in fact, but it works. And the chief engineer understands it. He explained it to me. Sir, the chief engineer is insane. Talasia was beginning to like this crew member. He's temperamental, I'll give you that, but he's very clever. Sir, he developed a machine to take off his socks last week. See, very clever chap. It was a bazooka and 2 bits of string. We aren't allowed back to that planet. We aren't even allowed to enter orbit. Fair point, Smithers. Now shut up while I explain our FTL drive to this lovely lady. Aye, sir. Shutting up directly. Dickie paused and refocused his attention on Talasia. Now then, FTL and gravity, in just a couple of easy, horrendously complicated steps. Ready? Talasia collected herself. She had never seen a crew and their commanding officer interact like these humans. They made life seem, well, fun. Ready as a Volta in spring, Dickie. Lovely, here we go. About a millennia ago, humans built this big circular thingy called a Large Hadron Collider, and they sent molecules around it to bang into each other to see what would happen. Some people thought it might make a black hole and suck our planet through itself. Thankfully, they were wrong. Wait, you built this on your own planet? When some people thought it might destroy it? Why? Why would you do that? To see what would happen, of course. You humans are crazy. So we keep being told. Now back to the engines. Eventually we discovered dark matter, and through that a whole bunch of new molecules that we didn't know about before. And when we put them in a LHC, thankfully a new one we had built in space, we found a combination that didn't produce a black hole so much as it did a wormhole, a tiny little wormhole. And then we figured out how to anchor one end of the wormhole, even though the wormhole was tiny, just a few centimeters long in real space from entrance to exit. But we found that if we then fired a super heavy molecule of dark matter through that tiny anchored wormhole, it exerted a push on the anchor and accelerated the particle. And then if you put another wormhole behind that and caught the particle in another wormhole, it got even faster, pushed even harder, and so on and so on. And when you have a line of lovely little wormholes in a row, they generate gravity. Talasia breathed. Yes, see? Simple. You're telling me your ship has a tube through the middle of it with 4 wormholes being constantly generated inside that, and you blindly hurl dark matter through it because it makes you go fast? No, of course not. But you said Endeavor has 4 engines. Yes, but each engine has 100 wormholes in series, but they really are very, very small. You lunatics, that's not how physics even works. That makes absolutely no sense. You should literally rip yourselves apart just by trying to turn that on. How? Why? What? I can't even… Talasia sputtered to a stop, muted by her own disbelief. Dickie smiled. I know it's not how physics as we know it works, but that's okay because that's not important. What is important is 2 things. 1, it does work, and 2, it's really, really fucking fast. The disbelief stayed with Talasia throughout the entire docking procedure with the Endeavor. The gig, as Dickie called it, slipped into its own specialized hangar in the surface of the immense vessel, but the Xerillian freighter was brought alongside and connected via an umbilical, through which the 50 other slaves on board were ushered. Talasia found herself acting as a nexus of communication between the humans and the former slaves. She helped arrange accommodation, health checkups for all, removal of the hated shock collars, all whilst debating with herself just how to break the news to the other former slaves that their saviors, these humans, were all obviously crazy. Hours later, having finally settled the last of the slaves that were struggling in the high gravity of the human ship, Talasia finally gave herself a hearty shake. Crazy or not, this was her life now, and she had better deal with it. Inquiring from one of the medical humans where she could find Dickie, she set off in search of this bridge. Did the humans have some sort of physics-defying river running through their ship too? She thought for a second and decided not to ask. But as she finally found Dickie, puzzling over a star map detailing the homeworlds of the slaves that they had decreed free, the lighting changed to a red hue, and a klaxon started wailing so loud her ears hurt. Commander! 12 ships emerging from FTL approximately 500,000 kilometers off our bow, sir, one of the bridge crew yelled. Oh, I say, how rude, Dickie responded. Now then, chaps and chapuses, what is the first rule of a red alert? He saw Talasia in the corner of the room and waved her over. A red alert is when something important happens, and all the lights change and the siren goes off, and the first thing we do is… Turn them off! Chorused the bridge crew as one, just as the lights returned to normal and the deafening wail stopped. Exactly. Good show. A chap can't think with all that flashing and clanging going on. Now who has come to visit? A tall female human with a skin tone entirely different to Dickie's, much to Talasia's amazement, turned from a large screen and said, It appears to be Xerillian ships, sir, all displaying energy signals congruent with charging weapons, strangely enough. Fantastic, how lovely. Thank you, number 1. Oh, and allow me to introduce the even lovelier Talasia. Talasia, it is my sincere pleasure to introduce you to Lieutenant Aliyah Singh, my second in command. Talasia quickly waved her hand at the smiling Lieutenant Singh. Those are Xerillian warships, Dickie. We should be running. They have us outnumbered. Ah, yes, running just the ticket. Full ahead flank, number 1. Aye, aye, sir. A rumble started to come up through the decking as HMS Endeavor came to life. Talasia tried not to think about how many wormholes were popping in and out of existence somewhere below her feet, and watched the displays alongside Dickie. She noticed something. Dickie? I meant running away. Oh no, my dear, we can't do that. If we did, then how would we be able to fight them? Basic tactics, you see. One gets in close, then one gives them a damn good kicking. Talasia whimpered. Her first day of freedom was going to be her last, it seemed. Hurtled to her death in a ship full of lunatics, straight into the teeth of a Xerillian battle group. Dickie spoke again. Number 1, range if you please. Coming up on 300,000, sir. Thank you. Prepare for a clockwise rotational spin. Aye, aye, sir. The Xerillians are opening fire. Range is at 250. Oh, poor show, far too early. Still, I suppose that counts as the first shot, eh? Fired at us without provocation, no less. Make a note in the log and run out the guns. All guns report ready and ready for rotation, sir. Range is 200,000. Thank you, number 1. I say, Talasia, If you're not too busy this evening, I was wondering if you would do me the honor of dining with me in my quarters. What? Are you mad? We're going to be dead! Talasia shouted at him. Well, barring that, of course. Range 150,000, Zerillions firing again, Lieutenant Singh helpfully interjected. Thank you now about that dinner? Talasia couldn't believe this madman. Fine, she growled. If we live, I'll dine with you. Oh, jolly good. Could someone pass the word to my steward it will be dinner for 2 in my quarters tonight? Range 100. Dickie looked back to the screens. The 12 warships had assumed a spread formation, all the better to all simultaneously fire at the oncoming endeavor. Range 50,000, Lieutenant Singh intoned, and a look of sudden seriousness settled on Dickie's face. Left full rudder, starboard broadside fire as you bear. A rippling thudding ran through the ship. Initiate spin, dorsal broadside fire as you bear. Barely a second later, the same thudding made the ship quiver. Port broadside, fire as you bear, ventral broadside, fire as you bear. Talasia struggled to make sense of the readouts she could see. As far as she could tell, she was standing on a tube of wormholes, rolling through space, guns firing from every point of the ship towards certain death, and just one thought was uppermost in her mind. She had nothing to wear for dinner.